All right, everybody, welcome to Scenic Views, another on-the-fly reaction, part two of The Last Jedi. Okay, so yesterday, we got a chance to discuss a few things. There was so much to discuss, but there was so much that I feel like we left out, and yet it was almost a 30-minute review. And it makes sense why a few other reviews that I've seen online are like pushing an hour long. And now, mind you, I haven't seen any of them. I've only seen one review, and that was it. I've only seen just one review, and it was to help me collect my thoughts. But outside of that, I haven't seen any because I really don't want any other influence. And probably after this one, I'll sit down and I'll see other people's reviews, see if we're on the same page, see if we're not, and I'll enjoy all the other commentators and commentary and movie pundits that I like to watch. But until then, I am still in the dark, other than having seen the movie. And so I wanna really discuss and touch on a couple of things I don't really feel like I got to discuss in detail yesterday. And one of the things that first comes to my mind is a lot of questions that I think are left to be answered. What does this now mean for going into episode 9? Because ultimately now the arc is coming to a close, and I will digress really quick and say that a lot of people who had issues with episode 7 because Kylo Ren was this and it left me wondering and I don't know, there was so many questions and whatever. Like, guys, it's a 3-part trilogy. Each movie has its own arc. It doesn't mean it's going to be completed because ultimately it's part of a major arc in which we're going to get all this closure, hopefully in episode 9. I'm assuming J.J. Abrams is going to come and close it. And I highly doubt, this is just maybe goodwill on my end, but I don't see J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson not discussing certain things. I just have a hard time thinking that would be the case. Now, there are some questions that I have. First and foremost, let's get to the major one, all right? The one that I think has been looming in all of our heads is what's going to happen with Leia. So much talk prior to this with Carrie Fisher's passing, Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, and everybody over there at that division said, we do not plan to do any CGI or any, CGI of her. And they didn't. They fulfilled that. But what does that mean for episode 9? Because in this movie, it ends with her still alive. There is no death of her. So what does that mean? Looking at that, I see that Han Solo died in episode 7. Luke Skywalker gave himself up willingly. He was at peace and he offered himself to be one with the Force after a final act of sacrifice. He became one with the Force willingly, as we spoke about yesterday, on his terms. It wasn't suicide. It wasn't a suicide mission that he knew he was going to kill himself. It was a last offering that he did to divert and help carry on the little spark of hope that'll ignite change against the First Order. So he went out in this one, and so I have to think that the Trinity is going to die in each one of these movies. What I don't think should happen is that Carrie Fisher should have an off-screen death. Okay, I lie. She should, but she shouldn't. But this is how it should be done. One, I will say I am not a fan of the recasting. Again, there are people that the roles are bigger than. You need to recast. There's no way. But in this situation, she is that role. She made that role. Carrie Fisher is Princess Leia, and to have anybody else do the role, in my opinion, would be a disservice, and it would just be in poor taste. Now, can they do it? They certainly can, and will we have to accept it? We sure will, and that's it. But I see fanboys going crazy, and some might like it. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody. I'm in the camp of individuals that think the only person who should ever play Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, is Carrie Fisher, because Carrie Fisher is Princess Leia. Nobody else is Princess Leia. She is Princess Leia. And I don't think they should CGI her. My theory, what I think should be done is, as we touched upon a little bit yesterday, briefly, I think we should open up with the crawl, explaining something. And I think they should open up with a funeral scene. A funeral scene maybe for her and Han together. Han is already gone. So I know that they pitched that yesterday. I don't know where they would get the body. because I think the body is gone because it blew up on that planet unless they somehow got the body. So you know what? Let's forego Han right now. We need to open up with a funeral scene, because I think that is how we move forward and we pass on. I don't want to see Carrie Fisher somewhere else. The only other way that I could see it being done, honestly, is if she's in a hologram, CGI hologram, and in which case there's not a lot of definition to that. The holograms are they're spotty, and that could work. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I just have a hard time thinking that Carrie Fisher's appearance in Episode 9 would be reduced to an off-screen death without any reference to it. But if you start the movie off strong with the funeral scene, I think that could set the tone and set the pacing, and it could be the push we need for Rey. I don't think parentally she has any more motivation. I don't know. I could be wrong. I know Tony touched on that a little bit yesterday, but I do still believe that she has a presence, and her presence will live on. Luke. What's going to happen with Luke? Will he be a Force ghost? That's a good question, and I haven't formulated enough thoughts on that. So I'm curious. So we'll sideline that for a second. Snoke. That's the one that I have a hard time wrestling with. Snoke's presence should still be felt. People in the galaxy know who Snoke is. If I'm not mistaken, it is canon that Snoke reached out to Palpatine. In certain books, Palpatine or Sidious knew of Snoke. Was he part of Snoke's contingency? He had a fascination with Vader, like a heavy fascination with Vader, more than he did Palpatine. So what is this guy? He's gone, and he went out too easy. But I'm okay with how he went out because it was really cool. That final fight scene was it was awesome. But what does this mean for Snoke? I don't think we need a lot of him. I don't think he needs to come back unless there's a clever way that they bring him back. But I do think his presence needs to be felt. And there needs to be some sort of an explanation for him. Even if they're going to do it in the books, the movies still have to have some sort of explanation. So those are the real big looming questions I have. And who's that little boy at the end? Because I know we spoke about how that Canto Bight scene was to set up potentially that boy and to further the narrative a little bit. And it could have been done, we can argue that it's definitely the weakest part of the story. But if it were just the only thing in that entire movie, it was strong. But in comparison to everything else, because everything else was so electrifying, for me, it was the weak part. But it sets up that little boy. And that little boy, who is he? He has Force abilities. Who is he? And not only that, how did those kids at the end know the story of what took place with Luke standing up to the First Order? How did they know about that? How did that little boy who was telling the story of what how did it already become legend? That's a plot hole for me that I think is that is still a little uneasy. But I don't have an issue because there's one more movie coming, and there's some answers that are going to come. So this isn't as much spoiler now that I think about it as it is theorizing and questions. Now, I will say I like what they did with Rey. One interesting thing that stood out both in the first viewing and in the second viewing is that when Rey goes to the dark place in the island and she falls into the water, when she comes out, her hair is different, she looks different, her behavior is different. I view that moment as her baptism, where she finally knows what she has to do and she is resolved. And even though the audience thinks that she's teetering on the side of joining Kylo, I think that was the moment she knew and things became clear for her. As she said to Luke, I know what I have to do, and if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then the other thing about her and Kylo is that there's a beautiful dynamic going on there. I don't know if there's chemistry in the sense of that there's going to be romance there, but the interesting thing to me is that she really believes he can be saved. And Luke said to them, after saying to Leia, Luke said to Leia, I can't save him. And she says, I know he's gone. And then he says, no one's ever gone. And I think that's a great point that was brought up yesterday, is that Luke came to grasp with the fact that he taught Rey in his failures. I can't save him. I tried. I failed him. I can't save him. But maybe Rey can. And Rey needs to live on for that to happen. And so back to that scene yesterday that we don't give a lot of gravity to, at least my friend Tony doesn't. I do believe that Rey is going to be carrying on the Jedi lineage through Force Ghosts. I think there are going to be some Force Ghosts that are going to help her. I do believe that Finn is now a part of this war. He joined. He picked his side, contrary to what Benicio del Toro's character told him to do. And I do think that Poe is going to be the one who carries on the rebellion. And maybe Leia's death affects Poe more. And that's part of his arc in Episode 9. And carrying on the spark of the rebellion. And maybe seeing a funeral scene with her burning up the way that they normally do burials. That can be the symbolic spark that officially just continues to push him. I don't know. Maybe I'm digging here, but symbolism is everything. And I think we can't dismiss the placement of those words and those images. And I know it's one of those, well, duh, but there's something more there. And Rian Johnson is very clever in what he did. Even back, like I said, to the Rey part where she fell into the water, I just have a hard time seeing that as anything else other than her baptism. That was her baptism into her steadfast convictions of becoming a Jedi. Another thing I didn't notice, Yoda burned down that tree, right? And Yoda says that there's nothing there that Rey doesn't already know. And then at the very end, we see, we see that Rey has the books. I didn't notice that the first time around. She has the Jedi books. So the Jedi die, but what dies is their arrogance in thinking they owned the Force, or that they had ties, or they had, for lack of a better word, ownership, or that they had the right to the Force. And Luke was teaching Rey that the Force is within everybody. It's in all of us. I love that one scene where he's like, reach out, and she's just like, and then he's just like, and he starts tickling her hands. She's like, I feel it, and then he smacks it, and she's like, oh, reach out from in here. And I never understood how everybody can do that the first or second time around without asking, what does it mean to reach out with your emotions? Does it mean to really just be free in your emotions? And it's interesting. I wonder. I have to go back, but aren't the Jedi not supposed to be emotional, or at least be more objective? And not let their feelings get in the way? And is that why Luke, or what Luke is understanding, is that this is all part of the same thing? Balance. And the more you understand balance, the more you can be a righteous light side user and stay away from the dark. But you have to understand that the dark's presence needs to be there. So I like that little portion in his schooling as he's talking to her in his first lesson. What else is there to discuss? Leia. Finn, his backstory, and Rose. I stand by that Rose is probably romantically interested in Finn, but I don't think Finn is. But is Poe and Rey gonna be a thing, or is Finn and Rey gonna be a thing, or is there anything going on? I just hope there's not a weird, awkward love triangle, because there's no place for that in Star Wars. Now, I want to address something that a lot of people have been going off about, and I think it's time to discuss this. And I'm sorry, I don't know how else to say it other than shut up. Shut up. People were so upset that The Force Awakens it reminds me so much of A New Hope, and now this one takes bold chances, and everybody's like, oh, it's deviating. What do you want? Really, what do you want? This was a bold movie, and it's passing the torch. The Skywalker lineage and story, the saga of them in this particular moment of the galaxy, in this particular timeline and circulation of events, is coming to an end. That Skywalker blood might carry on, we don't know, but it's time to move forward. And Rian Johnson took some bold chances. What do you mean it doesn't feel like Star Wars? Help me understand that, because it felt exactly like Star Wars. It was in that universe, and in a universe, time moves forward. Progression happens. Not everything is going to remain the same. And so people are never going to be happy. You're going to have people who are complaining that it was too much like the originals, and people who are saying, oh, they're making too many bold decisions. I don't understand that. What is it that you guys want? It makes no sense to me. So I'm sorry, my friend Tony might not be able to say it because this is going on the internet, but I will. Shut up. I don't understand your gripe with that. And this is not to be disrespectful. It's just that it doesn't make any sense. It was bold, and it was a bold move, and I like it. Just like Episode 5 was a bold move in comparison to what Episode 4 was. The return of The Empire Strikes Back was very bold, but now we're in a day and age where people are so spoiled with what Star Wars should be that no bold moves can take place because people just want to see it be a certain way. Now, I understand you feel that way when we get like a Han Solo origin movie. Do we need this? The universe is much bigger. Do we need this? Nobody's clamoring for this. I get that. I get some people even saying, it might be safe to bring J.J. Abrams back. But we now know Rian Johnson is not coming back, not because he doesn't want to, but because he's tired and he's getting his own trilogy. Lucasfilm and the people who were there from the beginning, especially Kathleen Kennedy, who's been involved with George Lucas on the other stuff, she knows. And if for her to be like, this is good. What's interesting, though, is I haven't, and I could be wrong, maybe I haven't seen any, but I don't know George Lucas's take on this. It'd be interesting to hear. But outside of that, guys, like, I don't understand your gripe with it. I think it was bold storytelling, and I love it. I love what they did. And I love that it was different. I love that they went that direction, and I love that they defied every expectation that we had, because the expectations that we did have, if they would have gotten met, would we have really been satisfied other than the temporary, I knew it? But then other than that, that was a safe move for them to do because they're going to just pander to the fans? No, I think this was bold, and it makes us follow along in a way that it's like, okay, now what? Like, it shatters all our theories, and I love that. And I think people just need to get over it. Get over the whatever it is that's making you hurt about this. Another thing I think I want to discuss is, well, no, I lost that train of thought. Sorry, guys. On the fly reactions. I don't plan these things. But yeah, what about Obi-Wan? Obi-Wan, we hear him specifically say, Rey, these are your first steps. What does this mean? And is Rey really a nobody? I'm okay with her being a nobody. Or will there be a twist and will there be a reveal? Was he just lying to her? The way he lied to her about, making her think that he could be changed. Like, he is a liar. Now, Kylo Ren, Adam Driver. Oh my God, what a performance. That one scene where he was like, more, like more fire, more fire, continue to like shoot all those things at Luke. Like, I love, and it wasn't that scene that I just love the way he portrayed. I love that scene, by the way, but I love the way he portrayed the character. Like, this is really, his arc is going, and he did a phenomenal job. There was not one moment on scene with him that made me go, Now, I agree with a friend of mine, David Maddox. There are times where, one or two times where Rey does something, and I'm like, they could have done another take on that. They could have probably gone with another take or said this differently. But again, that's not to take away from Daisy Ridley. Like, we see the progression in her character. A friend of mine, I'd like to address this on Leia. Leia's performance was electric. Carrie Fisher and Leia. Her performance was electrifying. And that moment between her and Luke was a family moment, in the words of Maddox again. That was very, very similar to Return of the Jedi on Endor, where they're having that scene and they're talking about family lineage and they're talking family and hurt and discovery and whatever. And I think it was very similar. And to see Carrie Fisher on screen with Mark Hamill one more time was just, it hurts. And it's bold that they never had the big three together all in one scene. But the fact that even they showed Luke say, where's Han? And knowing something was wrong, less was more. And that was satisfying for me. That was just good. That was good storytelling. I don't think that that Leia's performance was weak, and I don't know of anybody that thinks it was weak. I just don't. There are people, a friend of mine, that her and I were discussing it. She just thinks that it wasn't. It could have been more, and I think the beauty with Leia was her performance was strong everywhere that her presence was felt. But then in those subtle moments, less was more, and I really do feel that she gave what was needed in that moment. Not any more, not any less. And I do appreciate that. Whereas in episode 7, it was like, okay, we didn't get enough of you. And the little bit that we got, Carrie, do you still have it? Can you act? But without a shadow of a doubt, Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill still have it. and they delivered on these roles, and every emotion that character was supposed to feel because of the context and all the years of hurt, discovery, of victory and defeats. I felt that in these characters, and I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. They are these characters. Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker. Carrie Fisher is Leia, and to have anybody else play these roles, I think this is the one time that I would disagree with anybody who says the role is bigger than the person. In this case, no. The role is the person, and the person is the role. And so I think that and that shows in their performance. That shows. And could somebody come in and do a great job? Yes. But should they? No. I don't think so. And so J.J. Abrams, don't recast, bro. Don't recast. Give us a good exit for Carrie Fisher. And for me, I think as I started this video, as I'm winding it down, I think the best way to end it is, or to give her a send-off is to open up with a funeral scene. You open up with, in space as you normally do, you come down and maybe you see a planet. We go to a planet that we haven't been to for a while. A planet that means something. I don't know. And I have to think. It won't be Tatooine. I don't know. What planet? Maybe Endor with some Ewoks. Maybe that and we see a funeral scene there. Who knows? I don't know, but I think I have a hard time seeing any other proper way to send her off. Overall, this movie, the more and more I think about it, this movie was flawless. I mean, with the weaknesses and all, I fluctuate between a 9.8 and a 10. And it was because it was bold. It was because it defied my expectations. Seeing Kylo Ren kill Snoke, and that fight scene between them two, that fight scene was amazing. Or that scene where, I forget the commander's name, or the general's name, Laura Dern's character, where she goes into light speed and goes through the ships. Oh, I love that. I love that. Like, she, full light speed. Hux's performance for me was very over the top. That, I will say, is the downside. And I don't hate it. It just seemed very over the top. And yeah, he was not my favorite. I didn't hate him, but he wasn't. I just felt like it was very theatrical. And you will bow to the First Order. Like, Phasma'S Death, man, she went out quick. I wanted to see more of her, because it felt like there would have been more. So she was very minute in this, and that kind of hurts. It doesn't hurt. It kind of sucks. I would have liked to seen a little bit more, but whatever. That's fine. There's closure there, and she got the honorary fall to your death. There's always one in Star Wars, a fall to your death. What else? What else? I've touched on Finn. I've touched on Rey. I've touched on Phasma. I've touched on Luke and Leia. I've touched on Poe. I'd like to see his character develop more and really leading the rebellion, because he learned his lesson really quick. I agree with another pundit who said that that they took a bold choice in not making him right. The trigger happy, gun slinging, and I'm right. No, he was wrong, and he needed to be humbled, and he learned, as we spoke about yesterday. I love that. Snoke, we need some closure there, because how did he manage to wield an army and a legion in the First Order? How did he manage to do that? He is not a nobody, so his death cannot go without answer. I'm sorry, we need answers there. Finn, we talked about. Chewbacca. I love the little moments with R2-D2. I love how they sprinkled them in there with him and C-3PO, and how Princess Leia's like, wipe that nervous look off your face, and he's like, I'm nervous. I like that the story was it jumped a lot. It was fast pacing, but it was literally one location. Them on that ship floating with a couple other quick little side stories, and that 3 locations really throughout the whole movie. And I like that. I like that we weren't bouncing around a lot. So that was cool. Yeah, man, there's so much to. I'm not gonna do a part 3. If a part 3 comes, it comes. But I think I touched on a lot of what I wanted to touch on. I mean, I think the movie in and of itself was bold. I think they went directions, they defied expectations. I think they did things with characters that we didn't expect them to do. I think they've set up some cool things, and the torches are properly being passed. I think this was Star Wars in the future of what we knew. And I think that this movie was really good. It was a step up from Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And I'm curious to see now where Rey goes in her understanding of the Force and her strength. And she is strong. Snoke mentions it. He says, and I warned my apprentice that as you grew strong in the darkness, somebody your equal in the light will grow. And so I think their story will come to a head. Will Kylo Ren be redeemed? Is the real question. Can he be redeemed? Well, I will say this. In killing his father, which is a big deal, and a lot of people don't think he can be redeemed from that, in killing Snoke, for lack of better words, there's a balance there. He balanced it out. Even though a father is much more, but he balanced that out. And he didn't kill his mom when he had a chance. He hesitated. He didn't press the button. So there's so much there. And this is already only almost going into 30 minutes. So I'll just say there's so much more to discuss. And so I invite you guys, as always, to join me in the comments section to discuss this. Let's discuss this. Let's geek out. Come on. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Let's build. Let's talk more Star Wars, guys. I appreciate everybody who joins in on the conversation. I love that you guys join me in on this, because I don't do this for any other reason than because I love to talk about this, whether I have people with me or I have people joining me in the comment section. I just love to geek out about this. And this is, I love movies. I love movies. I am a filmmaker myself. I am in the media and the filmmaking industry. So I love discussing this stuff. So yeah, I don't know what else I'm missing. I'm sure there's so much more that I'm missing in terms of this movie, but guys, join in the conversation. Let's talk more. Let's dig deep. Let's geek out. As always, I appreciate you guys joining me. And until the next review, until the next one,